destroy it.
Close the door, Paul. It's going to be
Okay.
tough.
It's going to be that good, eh? Good morning, my name is Paul Fredrickson, and I'm going to talk to you about home video formats and the consumer's choice. What I'd like to do is talk to you about the history of home video formats. It's a rather short one. The current situation we're in regarding home video formats, what are the recent developments in home video formats, and we'll take a look at where we see the future developing in home video formats. Now, what I mean by home video formats, that refers to incompatible tape systems. And incompatibility can be caused by several different reasons. It could be because the tape cassette is of a different size, or possibly the tape itself is of a different thickness or width. The end result for the consumer is that they have a different format machine than other people may have. That means that they cannot exchange tapes with friends, or they cannot necessarily go down to the local home video rental store and be sure that they will be able to find a tape that can play in their machine. The bottom line is that it creates some confusion and creates problems for consumers when there are too many home video formats. Let's take a closer look at home video formats and the types of systems that have been around. Since 1976, there have been about 7 different home video formats available in the United States. Now, the 7 that I have listed up here, the last 4 on the list, V-Cord, quarter-inch Technicolor, B2000, and Omnicord, are no longer available. Or as one of my friends would say, they were vaporized by the consumer. For various reasons. In some cases, they had glaring technological disadvantages over other formats, and it made it a very obvious choice to the consumer that was not a machine to buy. In other cases, it was simply a matter of marketing support and manufacturer support that caused the format to die, because they simply were not available in enough stores to attract enough consumers to be interested in those formats. So the existing formats today are VHS, Beta, and 8mm. Now VHS, which stands for Video Home Systems, it's a system that uses a quarter-inch, or rather a half-inch wide tape in a cassette shell that, well, in fact, happens to be right here. The Beta system uses also a half-inch wide tape, but in the case of Beta, the cassette is smaller. In fact, it's about 1 inch shorter than this cassette. And as a result, you can put less tape inside of a Beta cassette. The result is that the recording time on VHS is longer, about 8 hours, and Beta is about 5.5 hours. Question?
Now, don't the tapes come VHS and Beta? VHS is half-inch and Beta is 3/4.
Beta is also half-inch.
Okay, that's what I
half-inch
thought.
wide.
All right. What about those tapes from Korea?
From Korea? Those are tapes made by various manufacturers that have entered the business the last few years. They're made in either VHS or Beta format, and they're licensed by the original companies that invented the systems.
I see.
So there's tapes made in Korea, Japan, the United States, Germany, and in some cases Hong Kong and Taiwan now. So they're made in more and more countries as the systems are more and more popular.
Is the quality just as good in all those countries?
Quality is variable. It all depends on the manufacturer's quality control standards that they apply to the product, and that will determine the end result in product quality.
When you have different, I as a salesman, can I offer my distributor a choice based on price? Will I be able to give him a different price for Korean tape as opposed to Japanese tape?
It's
My
possible.
distributor is always looking for the best price deal.
It's possible. We're getting off the subject here a little bit because the topic is not origin of manufacture of any particular products, but we're really talking about home video formats, if I can continue. But generally speaking, the manufacturer and the quality control standards, regardless of country, are the important factor in determining the end quality of the product. And the origin of manufacture is irrelevant in the case of the product. However, the price differences may be different depending on the manufacturer of origin for a lot of different reasons.
Does that problem still
Yes.
exist if I went to California, that all the places over there are Beta?
right?
No, that's not true.
Not true anymore?
In California, never really was the case. In California, the popularity of VHS is just as high there as it is anywhere else in the country. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute, the relative popularity of formats. Okay, if I'll continue with formats, the three formats that exist then, VHS, Beta, and 8mm, VHS and Beta use half-inch wide tape, different size cassette shells, making them incompatible. 8mm, which is another format, a relatively new introduction that was introduced in 1984, uses a 1/4-inch wide or 8mm wide tape, and it's a cassette that's about the size of an audio cassette. It's a completely different size cassette. It will not fit in either a Beta or a VHS machine. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later on. That's aimed at a specific consumer market. The bottom line for the consumer is they cannot exchange these tapes, and also the bottom line for the consumer is they have to make a choice. They're going to buy one machine or another in most cases. Some people have machines in all three formats. Very, very rare. So the choice has been particularly in the direction of VHS. VHS now is in about 80% of the households, not only in the United States, 80% of the households that have a VCR in the United States and in Europe, and generally speaking in the rest of the world. It's become a very dominant system very quickly. Beta is in about 10 to 12% of the households. 8mm, being rather new, is only in about 1% of the households, and the rest of the households consist of the remaining formats that are now more or less obsolete. So let's investigate why VHS has been so popular. What are the reasons for it having this consumer acceptance? Well, one of the first reasons is the number of brands that have gotten behind the VHS format and have sold VHS machines. For very practical reasons, what that means is there are more brands available to consumers, giving the consumer a wider choice of product, and it's available in more retail stores. It's easier to find VHS machines. And also there's a side benefit to this, because when you have more companies competing within that VHS marketplace, it creates a high level of price competitiveness, creates a high level of marketing push behind the product. That has a benefit as well. Now, features that have been stressed in VHS have always emphasized some very easily understandable consumer concepts, such as longer recording time, such as expanded timer capability to allow expanded time shift capability for the consumer, convenience features primarily. Other formats have tended to stress more esoteric things that are difficult to explain to the consumer, and in some cases can be very subjective, such as better picture quality, or such as some other esoteric features like a different type of head system. For the average consumer, that is not meaningful. Compatibility and evolution happen to be a couple of combined topics here, because as the product has evolved, as VHS product has evolved, the compatibility has always remained in place. What I mean by that, if you would have bought one of the first VHS machines and recorded a library of tapes on that machine, you can still go out and buy one of the latest generation VHS machines, and you would be able to record and play back on those same tapes. It is not true with some other formats. Beta is a good example. Yes?
Can I ask a question, Paul?
Sure.
You talk about compatibility between VHS. Can we make, I have a lot of distributors in my Florida area where they went to these Omni and 1/4-inch and all these other systems, and now they realize that VHS is the most popular. And they do have these library of tapes. A lot of money and time has been invested in them. Can they take those tapes and make them, or are you going to introduce some type of return program where people could send in these Beta tapes or Omnicore tapes, and you'll put them on the T120 cassette for them at a price, so that we can have compatibility between machines?
That is something that's very easily done, and the consumer does that. In fact, in many cases, people who bought the obsolete machines or the older systems, what they have done is decided to get into one of the newer formats like VHS. And when they buy their VHS machine, they're able to transfer, electronically transfer or dub those original cassettes onto a new machine and transfer them all into T120 tapes. very, very easily done. In fact, in some cases, some retailers, typically they would be the people who have to do this. They offer that service to consumers as well, for, in some cases, a no-charge basis, just in order to get them into a new machine, a new format. And it's very commonly done. It's a nice thing for a retailer to do, in fact.
Paul, excuse me, do you
Sure.
have any personal experience with Beta? Have you used Beta at all?
Yes.
I've heard the claim that Beta has superior picture quality. How do you-
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah, that is a very subjective sort of thing. That is one of the things that, for instance, as I pointed out earlier, some of the Beta manufacturers, particularly Sony, had emphasized because they were weak in other areas. And so they were trying to pick one particular feature and try to market that one feature.
Is there any technical basis for that claim at all?
Not at all. Not at all. Fundamentally, the system would work the same way. In fact, the tape that's used is the same in both formats. And the tape is one of the primary determining features in the picture quality, the recording format you're using.
What about recording speed?
And the recording speed is, in fact, the recording speed in VHS is faster, giving it theoretically a slight edge over Beta. So if you were to argue some theoretical aspects of this, it could be argued that VHS is in some cases better. It also uses wider heads, meaning it puts more signal on the tape. So, but the end result is really that they all provide about the same picture quality. It's all acceptable by the consumer. There are variations, many variations within machines, within a format. So you cannot make absolute statements about one format or another. But there's really no foundation to that. Probably the most important reason, which is the last reason on the list, is software. And in the VHS format, there has been a great deal of software available. In fact, most software available in the VHS format than any other format. But the more important reason tied into software is because the great number of households with VHS machines, the retailers who buy, rent, and sell the video cassettes available to the consumer have had a tendency to gravitate towards the biggest market, which is the VHS market. And in many cases, retailers who get into this business will stock only VHS cassettes. And that creates problems for consumers with other machines. And the end result is then, this has given the VHS system more momentum, because if the consumer was looking for a new machine, goes into one of these stores to ask them what their recommendation on the machine will be, they're going to say VHS, since that's all they stock, and they want to see that customer back in their store as a rental customer. Okay, so to review the current market situation we're in after the various formats have been around and the format confusion is shaken out somewhat, we see that there's a definite VHS dominance in the marketplace. Consumer demand remains very strong, making the outlook for video recorders excellent over the next few years. In fact, this year it appears that there will be about 13 million VCRs sold in the United States, and about 90% of those will be VHS machines. The product continues to evolve, which is a very important point in the consumer demand issue, because in order to continue to generate consumer demand, what needs to happen is the product needs to develop new customers, new interests. A good example of this product evolution is a product called the camcorder, which is a new product that combines a recorder and a camera into one compact unit that allows a customer to make their own home movies. Let's take a look at some of the camcorders. They actually come in 3 flavors in all 3 available formats right now. VHS Systems offers full-size and compact machines, a full-size machine using a standard VHS cassette. They also have a system that uses a compact VHS compatible cassette about the size of a pack of cigarettes, allowing a camcorder that fits in the palm of your hand and only weighs 2.5 pounds. This cassette can be popped into a special adapter that allows that tape to be played on any VHS machine, ensuring compatibility.
What is the playing time?
In the full size it's 2 hours and the compact is 1 hour. In the Beta system, they have a camcorder that uses a full-size cassette that has about a 2-hour recording time as well. It's had rather limited success due to the smaller population of Beta machines. And 8mm offers both full-size camcorders using the audio cassette size system and a compact system, which has some limitations due to the fact that it only has the ability to record and not play back. Therefore, you have to spend some extra money if you buy a compact 8mm machine and buy a separate playback deck. So where does the future appear to be going? Well, VHS would appear to dominate in the future because it has so much momentum now in terms of number of households, available software, and number of companies supporting the system. Beta is in a state of decline. It's predicted that possibly by 1990 it will no longer be around. That's debatable. 8mm is a question of survival. It's a very new format that's entering the business very late, and as a result, it must do many things over the next few years in order to ensure its future. So if we're to recap, what are some of the most important home format influences? Technology is a very important factor, however, only to the degree that a new format can be introduced with superior technology, clearly superior technology for the consumer, that the technology can change the direction of a format or knock out a format that exists already. Software has become an important issue as well, because as the customer base grows and as the software availability grows, then that continues to increase the difficulty it required for a new format to enter the marketplace, because they have a long way to go to catch up to the title catalog of an existing format. But in the final analysis, the consumer has the last say in all this. And everybody in the business cannot forget that it's the consumer who's voting here, it's the consumer's hard-earned dollars that are being spent, and they're the ones who will truly determine the future of any format. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
I don't know what the time